Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with the coach behind Details Matters posing and glute training, who has her bachelor's degree in industrial and organizational psychology and master's in juvenile justice, who has worked as a military service member for 16 years. She was a lifetime athlete and fell in love with bodybuilding in May of 2018, where she won overall in both novice and open class and went on to compete in 6 more shows and won her pro card at NPC Universe in 2020. She then went on to compete in 4 pro shows. And I'm very excited to talk to her today because we've actually competed together in the past. So this will be even more fun. We just had a great time chatting it up before recording. So welcome to the show, Toni Gaddis. How are you doing?
Good. And you?
I am great. Thank you. I am very happy to finally be recording with you and having you on. Just to give listeners perspective, we met at LA Champs in 2018. And everyone was like oohing and awing over you and you had accomplished a lot at your first show, so it was really cool to share the stage with you. And then when you won your pro card, that was awesome, because there's something about seeing someone you stepped on stage with like accomplish more of their goals. So before we get into everything, I like to ask, as you know, if there's a ritual you have or something you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage.
Honestly, for me, I love the stage. So I always just hope that the music is good. I take my time. I make sure, I like to watch the show while I'm on stage and watch the judges' reaction. So while right when I'm on the sideline getting ready to go, I'll be watching other girls in front of me. But then the girl that goes right before me, I don't watch her because I want to make sure, sometimes if you watch closely other people, you start to mimic their routine.
I don't watch that
girl. Yes.
Oh my
God. I watch the judge's reaction. And then I make sure that my angle is good, because when you're standing on the side, you want to make sure your angle is good. So right before I come on, I'm like, man, I hope this music is good because it's about to be on. And then I take a deep breath and I'm like, as soon as they say go, I think the go is probably the most nerve-wracking, because I want to go when I'm ready, like when I hit or beat. But when someone says go, you want to step right away. But I'm like, right. No, she said go, and now I'm going to go.
Yes.
And so it's like that. It's the first step. But then after I hit the first step, it's like, boom, I'm ready.
That's amazing. And I think it probably is a great tip that would work for anyone in posing. And we're definitely going to talk about your posing coaching experiences. So I want to start by going back though to your journey. You started in 2018, had that successful start. You went on to compete at USA's where you placed 11th. Then you moved up to 6th at national championships 4 months later. Then you took a year off before returning in 2020 to win a regional show. And then you won your master's class at NPC Universe. So what do you feel contributed to your climb up the ranks to eventually winning at Universe?
I would say from the moment that I got my plan to the moment I did my first show, I followed it to a T. Like that literally was it. I think there's a balance and a fine line between asking questions to understand and asking questions to question everything. But you have to, you have to have a trust for the person that is in charge of you. I am with a different coach than when I started with, but I was with my old coach for 3.5 years. Yeah, pretty much for 3 years. So, as much as we get interviewed and do consultations, I think that we forget as clients that we should also be doing the interviewing. And it's not an interview of the whole, like, well, what can you do for me? It's more of an interview to understand what you are needing and what they are doing as a coach, and if that's a good fit for you. So the coach that I had before, as soon as, and this may sound weird, I am a believer that you attract the energy that you put out. Mm-hmm. I literally found my coach after my best friend competed, and after helping her a little bit, I was like, man, this is something that I want to do. I literally went on Google and I Googled NPC bodybuilding coach or NPC bikini or something like that. And a couple people popped up. It's literally the same way I Google anything else, or I take to heart anything else. And when he popped up, I read a couple other people and I liked what I read. And I did the interview process. Like, I went to the consultation. We did a quick interview process. And like from there, it took off. Like, I got my plan the next day, and I got my workout. And I literally followed it. The questions that I had were a level of, it was kind of more to understand after I did my research. I'm a huge researcher. So I'm going to find out if it's something that I can figure out right then and there, but you're not going to spend too much time, like, obviously, if it's basic information. But a lot of the stuff that I did ask questions were about, because I'm really particular on food. So, certain things like, I don't do dairy, which for me means I don't do food with dairy in it. So there were certain things that were on my meal plan. I just, instead of saying I don't eat that, like, I remember I actually had cereal on my meal plan. I remember I had cereal on my meal plan, but this was like after we realized I needed to put on some weight. And it was simple. It was a Raisin Bran, but the Raisin Bran, I'm an ingredient freak. The Raisin Bran, it has milk in it, but there is a brand of cereal that I love. It's called, I think it's Nature's Own. They have a version of Raisin Bran. It's like a flax bran or whatever. So instead of just saying like, I don't eat Raisin Bran, you put that on my plan, what am I supposed to do? Or not eating it at all, or eating it and causing stomach irritations. I looked up the cereal that I thought was comparable. I screenshotted and this is before I even understood, like, I knew how to read nutrition, but I didn't understand like macro counting. Yeah. I screenshotted the label and I screenshotted the nutrition label, and I realized obviously the serving sizes and stuff were different. So I was like, hey, I just need to help. Is this suitable? And I need help with knowing what serving size amount should I compare this to? And I got a message back right away. Mm-hmm. So when it came to things like that, it was me doing my part so your coach is a coach. They're not your mom. They are a coach. They guide you, they assist you, they help you. So, and fortunately, after my first show, he told me, he's like, hey, you're not an amateur anymore. And I kind of didn't understand it because I was like, I did one show. I'm still an amateur. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, you're not an amateur anymore, meaning you don't just get the thing and follow it and not ask questions, which I already was asking questions anyway. It was like, now we are a team. Mm-hmm. So it was like a coach client team relationship. You want to know more, you ask more. So usually when we were doing certain things in prep, out of prep, I would always ask my number one question is, what are we looking for during this phase? Mm-hmm. So then I can know if something was off or something wasn't normal, because we think things are normal if it happens to us often. Right. So it's like, oh, that must be normal. Well, no, I want to know what we're looking for. So if something's weird, then I can bring it up right away during a check-in, or I was training with him in person at the time. And then I found out about just the league and the industry by research. I've had people tell me like, oh, you can't learn everything in a book. It's not about learning everything in a book. It's about researching the parts that you can learn. And then when you need more information and you ask questions, you can ask questions with knowledge and not just ask blanketed questions. So when I found out I wanted to do bodybuilding, like literally within the first month, I could tell you what a national show was, how many it was, how do you get your pro card, like all of that. So I think that and following my plan is what I got my plan December 3rd. My first show was supposed to be June. And my coach called me in April and was like, hey, I think you're ready. And I did the May 2nd or 3rd show, I think. And I won the overall. I did novice, open, I did the whole shebang, and I won. And I didn't know it was a big deal, but I went home with like 4 trophies, a sword, everything. And to me, of course, I was excited to accomplish that. But I was also in the light of, I did the work every day. This is what should happen when you do the work. Not the winning piece, but you should feel accomplished. The winning, that's neither here nor there. The trophy, that's here nor there. But when you put in a few months of work, or however many months of work or weeks of work to anything that you are trying to accomplish, and you do the thing, you get on stage and you get the shape and the body that you want, you should feel accomplished. The trophies and things like that, that's cool. But it's about personally feeling accomplished because you stuck to a plan that was written for you. You did the work day in, day out. You trained. And the training was different than not necessarily what I was used to, but what I was used to in a long time, because I was doing running. I was doing like half marathon running at the time. So I was only training upper body because I was like, I run, who needs to train lower body? I run, that's training. So like I used to cry training lower body, but I never stopped lifting. I would cry while I was lifting, and it would hurt because that burn in your lower body is different than your upper body.
It is.
It is a big difference, but I never would stop. So I accepted that as part of the process, because the burn was a burn because I was working out. I wasn't a pain because something was wrong. So then I did my second show, which was the LA Champions. And I did the second show because I planned on doing nationals. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't just a first show, not a fluke that I won, but a first show confidence. Because it was funny, when I got on stage, my coach was like, at the time, he was like, where did that come from? And I'm like, well, you typically see me after a full day. At the time I was a drill instructor. So I was working like 13 to 16 hours a day. So I'm like, when I came to the gym to train with you, you would see me after being outside all day, hiking, yelling, running around. So of course I was exhausted, and I like to learn. So if you're telling me stuff, I'm going to be paying attention. I'm not like, oh yeah, I know this, blah, blah, blah. So to him, I was quiet because I would, like I said, I used to cry when I lifted. When I did leg press, I would cry, but I was still just, tears would roll down my face, but I would still be pressing like I'm good. Nothing's wrong. It just hurts. So when I got on stage, it was like a boom. So he's like, okay, let's just make sure this is not just like a one show, one hit wonder. And I did the LA Championships, and we're super excited. And nationals was 1 week later. And that's when we realized the back-to-back show, with me already naturally being so lean and then being lean, for prep, I was way too lean. I was lean.
Yeah.
So we took some time off and came back for Miami. And then I got slated for a deployment. So that's the only reason why I took 2019 off. It was because I had no choice. I was gone. Yeah, it was definitely not a plan. I got slated for deployment, and I was gone all of 2019. So when I came back, I planned on doing the Arnold in February 2020, but that's when COVID took effect. Yeah. So I was in training for work. I wasn't holding my weight. It was like all the weight that I had gained. And I gained like 5 pounds. All the weight that I had gained on deployment, like just because I strictly just lifted. I lifted and ate. I still checked in with my coach as I could via, signal that we had whenever we had it. And when I got back, I immediately lost the 5 pounds, because we were doing some hiking and training. So we were like, well, let's just train and let's start to build some more and see how far we can build out until we get a show. And then Universe came. I was like, hey, let's do Universe. And there's a show, and it was in Baltimore. It was the East Coast Classic. So it was like, there's a show a couple weeks before that. So I went and I did that. That was my first time doing masters. I did masters, I did open. And I won both. I won the overall for both of those. And then I went straight to Universe. And Universe it was a different type of nerve-wracking. It was a nerve-wracking because we were on stage for so long. I have the video. We were on stage from the time I got called out to the time they said, "Thank you, ladies," for 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was just turning around, switching, turning around. Like, and it wasn't like we were on the side, like we were getting evaluated the whole time. Yeah. So it was a very we had moved so much. I didn't even know where I was on the stage. Like I had to go watch the video. I didn't know whether I should be excited. And then holding size has always been an issue for me. So I was definitely a little disappointed when we finally got down to the open. It was like a totally different body that had walked on stage. I literally had probably lost like 3 pounds. Like, whoa. It was like insane because the Universe, that venue was a different venue. The show it's a national show, so it's huge. Mm-hmm. By the time they got through all the master's classes and then starting over, I'm E class. Yeah. So starting over to open, and it was so cold and we couldn't take anything to pump up. Because they didn't want, it was like it was a fancy, like it was the Marriott, I think, but it was like a fancy ballroom. So we had to leave everything downstairs. So it was just that, like, I felt just like I was shriveling away, like as we were in line, and you line up so early. And it's just, I mean, it's the nature of nationals. It's a big show. Yeah. And especially Universe having, masters and everything like that. That's a big show. It's multiple days for that reason. But it was like a totally different, like my pictures, it's like a totally different person on stage. It's so weird.
Did the judges notice that too?
I'm guessing based off of how I play. I'm guessing based off how I play. I think I came in like 8th or 9th in open. So that, and it was not that I had never on it. Actually, no, it was, that. So it was as a national show, I mean, besides USA's, to come off of Miami being 6th in open and then coming back and doing well in masters and not doing well in open. I mean, top 10, but that's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I already know like my what's it, I guess, downfall or negative, I don't know what do you call it? Lacking body part. There you go. It's upper body. I mean, my glutes obviously upper part, the rest of my body. Mm-hmm. We all know this. Mm-hmm. So, which is hilarious because when I first started competing my first show, I had nice glutes, but they were small and tight. I had a bigger upper body. But I fell in love with lower body after I got over the crying.
How'd you end up
and I just got complacent. You know what it is? People say fall in love with the process and not the result. I fall in love with the results. I fall in love with results. That's what keeps me going to the gym, craving the results. So I think everyone has a different mindset or construct. I think it just really depends on your level to be able to evaluate your own body. And to me, that is what bodybuilding is. It's being able to look in the mirror and see the parts that you need to work on, understand how the muscles work, and doing those exercises. So the process is not what I fall in love with. I fall in love with the fact that I go to the gym and I see the results.
And how, or maybe I should go back, what was the feedback you got at some of those shows? And then how did you change your training to create the result that ultimately got you where you wanted?
I'm trying to see like the feedback because I was always that one. I will get my feedback. I don't care what place I am. I will get my feedback. I think my feedback's really been consistent, especially with Sandy and Becky, even on, the pro level is, a little bit more delt, a little bit more rear delt, and then a little tighter in the lower body. But the balance of that, they kind of go hand in hand. And so it's obviously when you and this specifically came from Sandy. She's like, oh, I would like to see you. This was Nashville, then at my pro show, Nashville. Like, I would like to see you a little bit bigger and the upper body a little bit tighter in the lower body, but you honestly can't get tighter in the lower body without sacrificing your upper body. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where, how did I change my training? Honestly, my training from 2018, 19 to 20 didn't necessarily change much, because I was in such a continued growth I was eating a crap load of food, trying to keep the size. My metabolism is insane. Partially has to do with the fact that I don't sit down. Work requires me to move around a lot. Like 2018 and 19, hitting 20,000 steps before noon was like my norm. Yeah. So being able to feed me with doing that, coming off of running, and I was still running at the time, but my day-to-day was walking around all day, hiking, gelling and things like that. And then deployment was that time period where I was able to put on some size because we were deployed. So, besides my everyday work, I still was walking around a lot. So my food flow, eating, lifting, minimal cardio. I can count on one hand how many times I stepped on a piece of cardio equipment, maybe like twice to warm up my legs to walk. But other than that, none of that. And then that pretty much was enough to get me, where I needed to be before I realized like, okay, I have really lacked the consistency in training my upper body. So obviously that's when I called Shantae. Yes. I'm like, hey girl, hey. And it's crazy. I don't think I lack the ability to train my upper body because it looked good at a point in time. But what I do know is, for me personally, you cannot do everything. Mm-hmm. So I think I did a post about that. Lower body, glutes, that's my thing. I understand the muscle structure. I love to research. I will love to continue learning about it in order to get programs and things done to the best of my ability for clients that how they need them. So if I'm spending all that research with that, having a job, and then, doing posing and also researching that, okay, my brain's at max capacity. Could I go and research shoulders and see what the best exercises are? Yeah, I can, but I also don't mind paying the person that already that's their thing. Mm-hmm. So why not just go straight to the source? And then she can, instead of spending more time on that research, I can talk directly to her, learn a lot of things right away. Yeah. And then get that structure and then continue to build on that and ask questions and things like that. It was just really a matter of the timing that I want for my success and the timing that I have to spend more time in doing that. We all have a limited amount of time. I am not a sole coach. I'm not a prep coach. So you're talking about, good and top prep coaches. They're 20 years in the making of research and constant learning just to be amazing prep coaches. So, I don't have 20 years to try to continue, to compete and want to go to the Olympia. So do I have that time to waste on seeing what exercise will benefit me in the gym when you have knowledgeable people that I am willing and I respect their advice and their opinion and their knowledge that I can just go directly to.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say are some of the most underrated keys to developing glutes, especially, the coveted glute ham tie-in?
Oh man, my favorite exercise. What I have seen and have learned, I don't necessarily think there is a underrated exercise per se, besides obvious hip thrusters, like hip thrusters, you need some hip thrusts, like you do. But what I will tell is the same thing I tell my girls. Typically speaking, the same exercises that you use for legs are typically the same exercises you use for glutes. The issue lies in how you execute those exercises. So let's take Bulgarian split squats. You can train quads in that movement and you can train glutes in that movement. But if you don't understand how to angle and hip hinge your body in order to target the glutes, you will continue training into where you're strong at, which is your leg, which requires you to just really kind of stand straight up in that exercise. So that can happen as well with even something as hip thrusters. If you're over thrusting, if you're using momentum, you can use your quads because that's your strong point. You know, it's the same thing that I relate. So I relate training glutes over legs the same way I relate training traps over shoulders to guys. If you don't pay attention and target your shoulders properly, that's why you have them. I call them the A-frame guys. That's why you have those guys that their body looks like an A, because they overtrain they overlift too heavy, not specifically focusing on the ego lift, not specifically focusing on the shoulders. They're lifting with their traps. So that's why their body goes down like an A. So for women, what I have found is something as simple as telling them to squat down really quickly. As soon as I see someone squat and immediately their knees go forward, I can tell you right now that they use their quads to do everything in their life. So it's basically reteaching. It's a mindset thing. And that's the biggest thing with lifting that I have seen and even learned. You have to let go of what you used to be able to do when you're trying to train a different body. It doesn't matter if you lift 600 pounds, if you were only using your quads. If you have to start at 135 pounds, you will still be able to move up, I think, fairly quickly in my experience. But will it suck mentally because you're starting over, quote unquote? Yes. And will it suck because you're weak, because I'm only making you use your glutes? Yes, it will.
Exactly.
But when you continue to do it over and over again, the same way you got strong in your legs is the same way you get strong in your glutes. So I don't think there's any underrated or even overrated exercise. I just think females underestimate the separation of a glute muscle and a leg muscle. It is definitely a different angle of the body when you're talking about trying to specifically target the glutes. And you don't have to do 16 exercises to do it.
Yes, that's a good point. Now, I think it's easy to fall into like patterns of movement, right? This is why people start to develop and not progress, or maybe they bring in like autopilot mode into their training sessions where they're just going through the motions. And I've been guilty of that. Like, I don't think it was until 2020 that I really started taking everything even more seriously, and my mindset started changing as far as how I brought it into training sessions. And I've been finding more success with just focusing on the time under tension and how my muscle actually feels when I'm lifting versus lifting in general, but actually focusing on how the muscle feels. So what would you tell someone who comes to you and says, I can't feel my glutes activate, only sometimes I feel? Like, how do you help someone to learn to really activate their glutes?
So the first thing that I do, and I actually just started implementing this with the consultation, I used to start, so my programs start the first of the month and they are 4 weeks long, and they continue to go every 4 weeks until you decide you want to be there. Your body. And I do consultations, but what I've started doing now is I don't allow new clients to start the first of the month. You have to start the last 2 weeks of the month. And during those last 2 weeks, we go over form, we go over glute activation exercises, which is just band work, but specific form using body weight to basically instruct you how to understand using that hip hinge of the glute, understanding the glute muscle and how it runs. I'm a big fan of knowing human anatomy in order to properly train your body. And then the biggest thing that I have been doing lately is focusing on how we are training with time under tension and less exercises. So this concept is so foreign to so many people. The mindset of it really shocks a lot of my clients because obviously we are used to doing a crap load of exercises in order to do the thing. But what I found out with dealing with the whole psychology piece and just the mindset of a person, if I give you a workout program and you open it up and you see 15 exercises, you have already decided that this is way too much work and I need to hurry up and do this and get out of the gym. Which means you are actually not spending a lot of time, that same energy you had with those first 5 exercises, you're not giving that energy to the last 10 exercises. So what I have come to know is then why don't I just give you 5 exercises? So my programs are not with a crop load of exercises, but again, people, especially women, we gotta do so much. You gotta be the wife, the mom, the aunt, the niece, the Susie homemaker, along with the powerful person out in the corporate America. It's just like we feel like if we're not doing a lot, we're not doing anything. So taking that concept that we already have in our mind and trying to tap into, you are amazing if you have one job and you go to the gym for 1 hour a day, you're still like an amazing person. So my workout programs usually tend to be 6 exercises is pushing it, but 5 to 6 exercises. And it focuses on not only time under tension, it focuses on understanding which way the muscle works, which way the glute max works, which way the glute minimus works, focuses on the direction of the line of that muscle. So then you're understanding your job is to stretch out the glute and squeeze the glute. So for instance, a typical hip thruster, and the workouts, they do change as far as the tempo. The tempo changes throughout. But for instance, the hip thruster, a regular tempo, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. 1 up, 1 down for a person that is already using their quads on every exercise, they will never, ever feel their glutes, no matter what you tell them. So for me, on the program of a particular hip thruster for tempo work, I focus on 2 to 3 seconds going down, 1 second hold, not a long pause, just 1 second, and then squeeze the glute up, squeeze for 3 seconds, and then release the glute back down. So you're going to release the tension in the glute the whole way down in a controlled manner, and you are using the glute to squeeze up. And then I like to relate the exercise to another exercise so they can understand it. I always relate hip thrusters to Romanian deadlifts. If you actually pay attention to a Romanian deadlift, it's the exact same thing as a hip thruster. You're just standing up. The motion's the same. So if they can't understand overextending in a hip thruster, then we go to Romanian deadlifts. Romanian deadlift tempo, 4 seconds down, 1 second squeeze up. Because the goal is for you to stretch the glute out and then squeeze the glute, not thrust it up, squeeze the glute. And I think the term hip thruster has now been overused. The thrust motion is that thrusting and throwing. You're not throwing the hips up. You're squeezing the glute in the up motion till you are parallel. Your shoulders, hips, and knees parallel. That's it. So it's really breaking things down. The same way I do my posing is the same way I do my glute training when it comes to allowing a person to gain a level of understanding what they've been doing, because I'm not going to always be there. So yes, my programs come with a 4-week, every 4-week training cycle, and it is required to train with me virtually once a week, because I'm a firm believer of we want results. I cannot guarantee you a timeline, but if you are with me at least once a week and I see what you're doing and I'm able to correct it, you're probably more likely to see those results a little bit faster than me just giving you a program. I mean, you can get a program off YouTube. Me just giving you a program, not looking at how you're training, and you're doing it for 6 months and saying you don't see anything. Well, you don't see anything because you probably are doing the same thing you were doing for 6 months before you even got a program from me. The only difference is I just wrote the program. But if I'm not teaching you, then it kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
So that specifically, I think is where the results lie in. We want results. So I'm teaching you how to train, what to look for, the same way I teach posing. It doesn't take anything away from me for me to teach you what to look for. You're not going to call me any less because I taught you what to look for. That doesn't mean you still know everything, but you know how to correct yourself and you know how to fix everything with steps.
Well, it's similar to like if I'm helping someone in their relationship with food or the way they view their body. I want them to learn how to be able to identify behavior patterns, thought patterns, things that are happening so that they can change them. And I want them to learn tools to address it. Does that mean that they would then be able to do what I do for other people? Like, no, it's not. It's just not the same. So I think it's important that we do teach clients things, and I love to hear that you're so committed to that and that you show up every week for them too. I think that's awesome. And obviously you're really passionate about it. And I wanted to get your take on, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but do you have an opinion on using like, the booty builder machine hip thrust where your feet are on the platform in front of you and you have like a seatbelt, and you're not moving, not the one where you're moving with the back part, you know what I'm talking about, but the one where the back part's just stable, versus setting up a box and doing hip thrusts off the ground. Like what is the difference between those two things?
So I don't think, no matter what it is, barbell hip thrusters, the glutenator or the booty, I think it's called the booty. I know what you're talking about, though. It has that black seatbelt on there.
Yeah,
and
booty builder.
The seat slides, the booty builder. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that one is great over the other. I do think when it comes to machine-based exercises, the benefit, so for me, for instance, the benefit of a machine-based exercise, i.e. hack squats, right? Hack squats versus me squatting on a squat rack. I don't necessarily squat often, but they have been in my program for the last 4 to 6 weeks. I do love the concept of a squat, but when I am trying to necessarily focus on, I have no problem with my glutes. So like, as far as using them.
Right.
But when I'm trying to focus specifically on my quads, I like to use the V squat or the hack squat machine, because I can load that machine up and it's stable. I'm not trying to stabilize myself. And now I can focus on my form. And when I mean form, it's not necessarily just going down and coming up. I can focus on my form, meaning not using my glutes because I'm scared I'm going to fall over. I can actually stretch and squeeze in the quad area. So I think that they all serve a purpose. And for anything where, not anything, but for the booty builder where your feet are elevated, what the benefit of that is you are getting a deeper stretch in the glutes. So I do think that machine serves a different purpose than actually, speaking of, I used to be the anti the Nautilus, because the Nautilus is the one that is like pretty much the hip thruster, but it's the one where the back moves.
It moves with you. Yes.
So I love the machine because it's an easy load, because when you're talking about 3.5 plates, that's a lot to just like deload off of the machine.
Yeah.
It takes a lot out of your workout, a lot of time. So I'm for it because I love the easy load and unload. But I had a hard time with the seatbelt because of how tiny I am and my hips and everything. I felt like I was digging. But over the last couple of weeks, because of the ease of the load and the new gym that I'm in, I've been using it more. And I've asked people, I've asked Daraja, I've looked at a couple of the guys that I follow that talk about glutes, and I've been paying attention to where it sits. And I've used it because it used to hurt my back. Like I couldn't do it. I'd rather have been on the barbell. And now I have to roll up some towels now to put under the seatbelt, but I actually now can lift heavy on that, minus, or the same as I would be able on the barbell. Now for me, because I understand the mechanics of the barbell, I don't feel not leveled on a barbell hip thruster. I do think a machine is a little bit more restrictive. So it can cause you to actually think about your form more than a barbell hip thruster, where you can get away with more crappy form. But depending on your body and the person, machines can sometimes be too restrictive.
Yeah.
So it just really depends on the person. But for the booty builder, what I do know about that machine is, even though the pad doesn't slide back and forth, you still should angle back and forth on that. You shouldn't still have your sternum up in the air, but also that block, it moves back and forth for a shorter or taller individual. Mm-hmm. So I do like that. I like the ease of the load. And I think it's a little bit more safe when we're talking about loading, because I do the same elevation where you have the back elevated and the feet elevated hip thruster to get a deeper stretch.
Yeah.
But you're talking about putting your feet on something while you're trying to put the barbell on top of you. And when you get to a certain load of weight, that becomes the juice not worth the squeeze, to mm-hmm. me, in my opinion, when you are focused on a workout. Like, if you're in that particular training session, if you're not focused on strengthening your balance or strengthening, like, yes, there's a time that you should be doing that all the time, and there's a specific time for that. But if you're trying to go in there and just like, today I want a deeper stretch in my glutes for this particular workout, or I want to hit a little bit of hammies and glutes with the booty builder, you want to get into a machine that you can get set up and literally focus solely on the squeeze and the stretch. So I think they all serve a purpose.
Like, if you're supersetting it with something else, it's like, the last thing I want to do is set up this barbell and then have to set up another one. If I can superset, like if I can leave this one for doing RDL and come do hip thrust, that makes more sense.
Exactly. And I don't like, even the same thing with RDLs. I don't think that dumbbells supersede a barbell, I don't even know what the machine is called that most guys use for, it's a machine that most guys use for shrugs, but I use them for RDLs.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Nice. So I don't think one's superior. Yeah. I don't think any one is superior. Sometimes I use a kettlebell. I don't think anyone's superior over the other, but now that my RDLs have significantly went up in weight, the barbell becomes better for me, because no matter how strong I am still a tiny individual. So trying to hold, 135 pounds worth of dumbbells, it becomes irritating. And I'm actually dealing with that right now with Bulgarian split squats. Like, I'm up to 50 pounds on each side. It's a lot to hold the dumbbell. Like, I can hold them doing RDLs, but trying to hold them doing Bulgarian split squats, the frustration goes with, it's not my body that's giving out. It's my arms and my hands trying to hold.
That's the worst.
A 50-pound dumbbell on each side. Like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, that's basically almost my weight. Like,
you don't want your mind like distracted by your hands or your grip hurting. You want to focus on the glutes.
Exactly. So that'll be the time that I would move up to, well, for Bulgarian split squats, no, but that would be the time for RDLs that I move up to a machine or a barbell, based off of if I'm trying to superset, or if I'm just doing that and I want to go heavy that day. But if I'm supersetting maybe with dumbbells and they're medium dumb, then I could use a dumbbell. But when I'm trying to like do these, like I have the energy and I have the strength, and it's been insane lately in the gym. So I went to strictly with barbells, but I actually prefer dumbbell RDLs.
Yeah. I think mine changes based on what season I'm in too. Like, am I training? Are we doing high volume? Are we doing lower volume? But I really like lately I've been like really on the barbell kick with RDLs at least. Yeah. And I like how I've been
using the barbell.
Especially because the bar itself like tracks with your body, and I don't know, there's something, it's like helping me really like stretch my glutes a lot.
Yeah. And I like the dumbbells because I place them kind of catty corner, like on the side, like
that is true,
like right at a 45-degree angle. So I like that angle more, but that's not necessarily for my glutes. It is for, I'm narrow. So it helps me better in the shoulder. So I think if you're a little bit wider up top, the barbell probably placement does help.
Yeah.
But it really just depends on, what season you're in, or if you're trying to lift heavy that day, or if you're supersetting, like all that kind of goes into play.
How far do I need to carry these dumbbells in order to do this?
Exactly. But yeah, I don't think when it comes to hip thrusters or RDLs, there is necessarily a difference. And I think that I am not personally a fan of Smith machine hip thrusters, but I think that's why a lot of people use Smith machine, because I don't think most gyms have the Nautilus machine for hip thrusters. So most people do use the Smith machine because of the easy load. You're not having to lift the barbell up. You know, you can just get right up under it and get all set up.
Yeah. I think it's nice for the froggy hip thrusters, but I don't like it for anything else, because to me, it's more awkward to bring the bench over and get the whole, I don't need to figure out the height, but I'm blessed with a gym that has other options.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about, and I'm glad that we talked about the glute development, because I know that's your forte. So I definitely want to ask you about the experiences you've had competing as a pro now, but I also want to talk to you about posing. So which one do you want to cover first?
Posing. As much as I love training glutes, I am so in love with posing.
That's what started this whole thing, right? Was you posing coaching?
Yes. Oh, the journey to posing coaching. If stand in your way or stop standing in your own way, that would probably be the title of my journey to teaching posing.
How are you getting in your own way?
So teaching comes naturally to me, mostly because I think that when you're comfortable and you do the research in something you're passionate about, you're going to learn it. So then you don't have a problem with explaining it. Come from a family of educators. My grandmother, she owned a school. She has a PhD in education, aunt, social worker, and a teacher. So my sister was a teacher for 15 years. She owns her own tutoring business now. And I was a drill instructor for 5 to 6 years. So it's a different level of teaching, but it's teaching. So I've always been the one to, if I can learn something, I'm super logical. So if I can learn something and then be able to explain it to anyone else in a way that they can understand it, because I think that sometimes is the issue. You have to be able to relate things. So for instance, being a drill instructor, we teach a lot of things, but one of the things is that we teach is drill, especially, in the military. I don't think people really understand how difficult it is to teach a civilian that decided to join the military drill. It's literally the same as if it would be posing. I mean, you're not talking about dance or ballet or gymnastics. Typically, those people that do those sports, they get into those fairly young. They develop a passion for it. They have a passion for it. When you're talking about something like the military, there's very few people that join the military because they were just so in love with the military and they went to ROTC and then they joined the military. That's not your norm, what people actually think. I think people think that everyone in the military went to ROTC. I never heard of ROTC. We didn't have it in my school. Nobody in my family, besides my uncle, was in the military. My family's was anti-military. So when I joined out of college. So it was something that I wanted to do because it was challenging. It wasn't because I was a militant person. So
wait, really quick, you joined to challenge yourself? Were you going through something that you wanted to?
No, okay. I thought it was something. I thought it was physically demanding. And I'm like, oh man, this is cool. And I went to college super young. So in order for me to go to the military at the time, my parents had to sign off on it, and that wasn't happening. So I was too young to sign up on my own. And they were once you graduate college, I don't care what you do. So I joined literally 6 months, or I signed up 6 months prior to me graduating college. And I did boot camp. And then I was like, man, it wasn't that hard. Wow. So then I was like, okay, what in the military that I could do? What in the military can I do? So that's how the whole, before I decided after my 4 years, my first 4 years, I was like, I want to be a drill instructor, because I remember my drill instructors and they were hard. So this has to be hard and I want to do it. So when you're talking about teaching a civilian drill, on the first week that they join the military. People just assume that because they join, they know it. They do not. So
what
it's the
drill,
same exact
for those
thing.
of us that
So
don't
like
know?
just marching, manual of arms with a weapon, like things that people see on TV when they think about like the silent drill platoon, like all those fancy ceremonies that they see on TV. They think that people are just like, they were born into it and they just know it all. So being a drill instructor, that's one of the things that we teach. And you're talking about teaching that to the average person that joins the military, 17, 18 years old, that have no clue what you're talking about. So you say, turn to the right, they look at you, or they turn to the left. So you have to break that down in a manner that is relatable and so they can understand, and you relate those to every drill instructor has their own personality. So you relate that to their personality based off of their experiences and things like that, things that help them, things that they think would help that particular recruit. So when I got into competing, I was the person that watched YouTube videos, but I understood it.
Yeah.
So, everyone's like, oh, don't watch YouTube videos. It's going to be a mess. So I'm not saying that I was not a mess. Yeah. I'm not saying I was not a mess now. We all started somewhere. But when I watched them, I understood what I was looking at, because like drill, when you are trying to learn a dance move, a routine or something, you look at the feet, you see what direction the feet are going, and you mimic that and you practice that. So I did have a posing coach that I posed with for my first show. I've had a couple of posing coaches actually. And it really got to a point where I was recording my routines and my practices so I can study them and do them at home. And, you want to get the exact thing down pat. And, I would, oh yeah, girl, you look good. It's amazing. Oh, it's so awesome. And then I would go home and look at my video and I'm like, that's not good at all. And it wasn't because I was being hard on myself. It was because I recognized that that was not good. And, I did have the confidence and I had the moves, for my first show, but I mean, it's not nothing that it would be good for now. So I talked to my coach at the time and I'm like, I just find it weird that I'm paying people to tell me that it's good and it's not good. Like, and I don't know if that's the kind of people that people deal with on a daily basis when you're talking about coaching. Like they need that pump up. I need to be told the truth. And I think that you can tell the truth without degrading someone or, talking down to them in any manner. You can just tell them like, yeah, girl, we almost got it, but that's not it yet. Yeah. But you also don't need to tell that person like, yeah, girl, it's so awesome when it's not. So my coach at the time, he straight up told me, he was like, well, why don't you just pose yourself? And I was like, oh, you can do that. Like, duh. I was like, oh, you can do that. I'm like, well, I really need help. I can't see my back pose. It's hard to turn around and turn back around and record it and see where you were. So he was like, and my coach at the time actually was really good at posing. So he did our teams, like when we got together as a group, when we were doing shows together, he did our team posing. So he was like, well, you can pose yourself. When we meet as a team, I'll look at your back pose. I'll fix your back pose as I need to. And then you can start posing the team. And that was after my second show. So I started posing the girls on the team. And I am the type of person, I'm not going to just do something and just think that I know everything. So as I started doing it, I started looking up seminars. I literally watched everything from NPC News Online to YouTube to going to random seminars. Even if like you feel like you can't get something from it, there was one thing that I got from it because I was looking for that thing. Yes. To be able to, if I didn't get anything new from the seminar, the one thing that I would always get from one of them is a different verbiage to use to be able to help a person that may not be understanding the verbiage I was using or the verbiage they heard before. So something that I can relate. And then so I am a believer of it, a coach needs a coach. So I did meet Jazzy, and that's when Jocelyn Gonzalez, we clicked right away. We have the same style of teaching and the level she was in the military as well. So that same style of teaching and the level of understanding and wanting to understand more, that's how we click. So I still get with her. Obviously the same reasons, back pose, or if I'm thinking about something and I come up with a routine, I'm like, hey, I need you to look at this from your eyes. I don't have a problem critiquing myself, but it's different when you look at it through a video. I'm like, hey, can you look at this and tell me this flow? Or, hey, I'm struggling with this foot. I know where I know what I should be doing, but it's not clicking. So I still meet with her. I still, get her opinion on things, but going from posing myself to teaching my teammates, so back to standing in my own way. So that all happened within a couple months of me competing. So in my eyes, what my fear was is, and because I've had a couple conversations with a couple of people and they were like, well, they would not be talking to me, but I felt like in general, the general conversation was, it's kind of like a thing that they're telling you. So I really felt that, because even though I had world experience or drill instructor experience or teaching experience in general, or just a level of understanding experience, I felt that in my eyes, who would listen to me to pose them if I've only been competing less than a year? Like, who would pay me to teach them how to pose? Because that was the general consensus of the sport, which in some way they are right. Like, people in general are right. It's kind of like everybody's a coach. They did one show and now you're a coach. But what we tend to forget is that person may have only done one show or two shows. Now, you do have the ones, we're still going to know that we have the ones that they do one show and all of a sudden they're a coach. Okay, that's not the thing. You're 18, you do one show, you're not a coach. But you do have the ones that they have a background, and it may not have been tailored to competing, but it just clicks for them. They just understand it. Like, posing just clicked for me because my background was being able to, I was a cheerleader, I was on a dance team, is being able to look at the things, look at the rules, match that up, look at other people posing, learn from them. It just clicked. So what I did was I gave myself little timelines to kind of get myself out into standing in my own way. So I told myself, okay, because I was just taking, regular, like, oh, just send me a text message when you're ready to pose. But then it got busy and I was like missing like appointments because they were stuck in a text, or I would be at work when I got the text and I would open it up, but I didn't save it or put it on my calendar. So then I was like, okay, I need a scheduler. So Jasmine was the one that told me about Acuity. So I went on Acuity and I booked that. After so long though, Acuity became not enough information for people to understand when they booked. So I was still getting DMs and phone calls like, well, how do I do this? Or what is this? Should I pick this button? So I'm like, okay, I need consultations. But then even after the consultation, it was like, I tried to buy a package, but I didn't understand. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So Acuity came when I said, when I get my pro card, I'll do Acuity. So I got my pro card and I did Acuity. Then I said, okay, after I do my pro debut, I'm going to get a website. And then I got busy, training and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not closing out my rookie year without a website. So I finally went on Wix and did all the things. And it's still, it's still gonna, those things are still in the back of your mind. Like, well, why would I know what I'm talking about. But when you see a lot of things, people kind of they generalize that statement. Like, well, I mean, okay, so yeah, now you're a pro, but you just turned pro. Like, can you really teach posing? Like, how do you know, or whatever have you? Or you haven't won a pro show. Can you teach posing? Like, you haven't even won. But I knew people liked my posing. And I knew I was the one, not only do you like my posing, I can actually show you how to do this. So I finally built my website, but it actually started, the whole Mindset Matters thing started in January last year. And I told myself, that was the day I told myself, I am going to acknowledge the fear that I may have in things, but I'm never going to let that fear stop me from doing anything. And that even came to with applying for sponsorships and things like that. I'm like, at the end of the day, what I have to realize is the reality of things are people can only say yes or no. even if I reach out to people, so sometimes I see people and I see that they're struggling, but they may not know who to reach out to. So I reach out to them. I'm like, hey, you know, I can help you out real quick with this pose. I saw you doing it online. Sometimes, and my passion for like helping is insane. And I know sometimes somebody could really just cuss me out and be like, well, who are you? Like, blah, blah, blah. It's never happened either. I feel like the vibe that I have, you know, is like, I'm actually here to help. But at the end of the day, what I have to tell myself is the only thing that can tell me is I don't want to take any advice from you. Is that really hurting my feelings? No. At the end of the day, if that's the case, then they're going to lose out, not me.
Yeah.
So the logic of things is what helped me on that stay out of your own way or fear thing. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, people tell me like, oh, you're so brave, you're so bold. I'm not saying that I don't have fear. Every time when I decided to start my website, I was so nervous, but I refused to let it stop me from starting. So I was nervous. I'm like, I have a website. Now, what if I never get any clients anymore because I have a website and, you know, things like that. But you can have fear all day long. Just don't let it stop you from doing the things that you need to do to move forward. Because at the end of the day, all someone can tell you is yes or no. Mm-hmm. That's all they can say. And if it's no, or if you don't get a client that you have a consultation with, you are not the right fit for them. And I am totally okay. I know I have a set standard. I know how I teach. I know that I am not the teaching method for everyone. I will hype you up. I will tell you that you have the ability to do everything, but if it does not look good, I am not going to tell you it doesn't look good. It's just not, it's not going to happen.
Do you take like a drill sergeant approach to your coaching?
No.
Okay. So what's
you know what's
your
funny? What's funny is I was good as a drill instructor because of the person that I am. I did not become the person that I am because I was a drill instructor. So my approach to teaching is not necessarily a high level of patience. I do have patience. You have to have patience. If you want to teach, you have to have patience. But it's a high level of understanding. You have to be able to understand that everyone is different, everyone learns different, and everyone has a different experience level. I highly believe that the level of experience of a person is what dictates how they're going to be able to understand the information that you're providing. So if you get people all the time and like, oh my God, I've never danced or cheered or anything all the time. Perfect. That means that you're actually going to listen to exactly what I'm saying and do exactly what I'm saying. I start a lot of it with, I'm not worried about your hands. I'm not worried about your arms. I'm worried about your feet. Let's walk through how you put your steps in place. Let's walk through how you transfer your body weight. Let's walk through all of this stuff. And I tell them up front the levels and the processes, because of course, everyone that wants to start posing, they want to do a hair flip. They want to toot the glute up. They want to do all the things, which if that is your personality, those things can work for you. But before you add the sauce onto the steak, you got to season it. You got to cook it. You got to get all the things together, and then you can add the sauce. So when you let people know up front what they should expect, and the number one thing that I tell every client is, you are not special, but in a good way. You are not so special that you didn't get it on day 2. Nobody does. Mm-hmm. So it's to reassure them that they're not slow, quote unquote, is what they say. They're not slow. They are not never going to understand it. I always tell them that everyone gets it when they get it, but when they get it, they got it. It clicks differently for everyone. Some people, it's week 3. Some girls, it literally is 2 weeks before the show. But what clicking is that it clicks, meaning the mind, muscle, body clicks. Mm-hmm. They understand what I'm saying and they're executing it. It's just not moving together how they want it. So if they're putting in the work and they're practicing and they're listening to the words that I'm saying and they're executing it, it's going to happen. It's the same reason why parents read to their babies. It's going to click when it clicks. They may not understand what you're saying right now, but it's going to click when it clicks. So as long as you are putting in the work, it hits it. Like I have like really a list of things that I tell them, you know, whether it's the beginning of the session or the end of the session. And that's one of them. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I tell them is, if you're 25 years old and you've been standing and walking a certain way for 25 years, however long it took you to learn how to walk, 0 to, I don't know, 9-10 months, however long it takes for your baby to learn how to walk. What makes you think that you're going to learn how to undo normal standing, normal body twisting that you've been doing in 2 weeks? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the best, you know, pelvic tilt in the world if you don't stretch during your normal training. But if you don't, most people don't stand like that. Actually, most people stand the opposite. They rest their cell phone on their stomach. They have their shoulders hunched over. So we're trying to undo something you've been doing all your life just for you to be on stage. So it's that tapping into that why, tapping into that understanding, that's that giving them the understanding and the reassurance that this is how the process works. For most people, it just is faster or slower for people, but once they get it, they got it. So it's not a like, oh my goodness, I didn't get this on day one. And then I give them tidbits. Because I do glute training, I let them know if I see something in your posing that's off, I can probably tell how you're training. So I give them that additional, like, hey, it looks like you're leaning on your right side. When you train with your coach, or if you train by yourself, make sure you're pushing into the ground with both of your feet. And it clicks. So now you have something else to relate it to. So I relate posing to something someone does on a daily basis, because if you just try to stick it to posing, that's so new to them, it's gonna take longer.
Yeah. Of course. I think relating any new lesson to something someone already knows is great for context. Like even taking something completely out of context, I think brings in so much more insight, because if we're like, it's only posing, it's posing, it's posing, and they already feel overwhelmed by posing, it's like, okay, this is not helpful. Let's bring them somewhere else for a moment. So I think it's great that you found your style and that you know who you want to work with and how you work with them as well. I think that that's really good, and also great that you got out of your own way. So
yes, oh my goodness, that was crazy. I know it hasn't even been that long. I haven't been doing it that long, but I'm like, I understand this. I can't not want to pass this on to other people. Right. Like, because you see there's a variety of posing coaches, but for the most part, I typically see the stand like this and turn like this. Good. And I'm like, this is not what about pointing the toe into the left side of the body? Or, hey, remember how you would stand this way doing this? Okay, this is what I want you to do. Now you're going to rotate this way, rotate that way. Think about squeezing out a towel with your rib cage. And then they're like, oh, that's what it feels like. Versus like, keep turning, twist, 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 twist. So no, I'm not yelling. I'm not going crazy. If I'm like loud, it's because I'm hyped. Like, yes, that's it. And I love sending photos back to my clients. Like, look, you thought that you didn't get it and you got it. And I always tell them, it's the reassurance at the end of the session, like, go ahead and hit that pose again. Even if it's wonky, it's like, hey, but do you see how easy you got into it compared to when we first started, 25 minutes ago? So that little time that you loosened up your body, now here are some tips. Yoga will, foam rolling, stretching. These are all the things that you can do to continuously loosen up your body. And just like lifting was hard when you first started, this is going to be just as hard.
I love those little tips too that you just mentioned, like yoga wheel, foam rolling, stretching. I think those are really important. And when posing coaches can provide that, especially based on what they see, that's awesome. So I'm happy you mentioned that. And I do want to talk about your experience in the military. I think it's cool that you were inspired to join to challenge yourself. But I more so want to hear, like, what did you do to manage your schedule while also striving for your competition goals? Like, was it difficult to meal prep at times because of situations? Like,
it's because I'm crazy. That's what it is. I have always been one of those people. The less time that I have, the more organized I am. And the more time that I have, the more time I leave myself open space and I do absolutely nothing. So I have had to slowly over the time, like I'm getting older, so I'm starting to forget things, like
how old are
things slip my
you?
mind. Oh my God. I'll be 39 next month. Oh, wait, this month. It's in a couple weeks. I
Holy
think
crap.
39, right?
What the
So
heck?
my wife always laughs because I always forget my age because I have a scale. So you know how your scale shows your metabolic age and it shows your real age. My metabolic age is lower than my real age. So I always only look at the metabolic age and
You're
then
like,
I
I'm
start thinking
17.
that's how
You're
I always am like,
illegally
wait, how old am
married
I?
to me.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, how old am I again? So no, I don't think like I'm just so old, but I think that what used to be an asset is no longer an asset, which having a lot of things. So I make sure I actually go and plan out my schedule. It's not that I still don't have a lot of things going on, but I don't just remember every step of the way like I used to.
Makes sense.
So yeah,
for you, is it like habit then?
I think it's just how I want to say it was how I was brought up. Like I was always, my family like harped on being great, like harped on being great, harped on education, harped on, like I always was ahead in grades. I went to summer school, not because I was behind. I went to summer school to get ahead. Like it's always been me, like it's always what's the next challenge? What's the next challenge? What's the next challenge? The downfall of that though, is you forget to stop and look back or just stop and appreciate how many things that you've accomplished. So I've had to do that even over the course of being in the military. Like, I'm like, wow, my first 3 years in the military, I was on a deployment. I lived in like 2 different countries. Like that was my first couple of years. That's not normal. So I've had to do that along the way. And it's the same thing, you know, with work and going into competing. Like I look back at that time frame now and I'm like, how did I do that? Like it is crazy. So right before I started competing, I had just received orders to go back to the drill field to be a drill instructor at another station that was all male. So it was like the first 7 females that got to go there and train males. So I was an instructor at the school for drill instructors.
Nice.
So doing that, but before I got that, I had just submitted my request to do my dissertation for my master's because I didn't know I was going to get those orders. So I had that going on. And then I was like, I want to start competing.
Yeah.
And my wife was deployed at the time. I'm like, I look back at that and I'm like, wow, I was just crazy. And it was not that long ago. We're talking 2017, 2018. So I'm like, I was crazy. So it was just like, I looked for things when I got bored, and I got bored when I had empty space. And it wasn't like I just had empty space on my schedule because I was at work all day. I had to be at work at 3 a.m. We didn't get home till like 7, 8, 9 at night. So it wasn't like I just had empty space, but I'm like, I want to do this. And I just learned in life, you can't wait till things are perfect to start things. You just have to be more organized. Like if I was to wait, I retire in 4 years. So I would be 4 years still waiting to do things that I wanted to do. So yeah, I saw my friend doing it. My friend was in the military as well. And I was like, wow, this is so awesome that she's doing this. I was like, man, but that's, we talked a lot. So I was like, I don't think that sounds right. And I didn't know anything about competing per se, but I just knew some stuff that just didn't sound right. So yeah, I got into it, and man, it's crazy because I remember coming home on a Friday. This is when I first started ordering my groceries. Coming home on a Friday, ordering my groceries so I can cook on Saturday, spend all day Saturday doing homework. And then Sunday, like try to go out and do a couple things. And then Monday, like all over again. Mm-hmm. I've always eaten clean. I've always been a person to eat clean, like general clean. Like I love food. I love going out to eat. We're actually in New York right now because it's my wife's birthday weekend. So I love food. But I've never been like an overeater type person. So I've always meal prepped. And when I say meal prepped, I was not macro counting at the time before I started competing, but we always cooked for the week. Just because of time. I had to be at work super early in the morning. So I am the person, I like to get up, get in the shower, get dressed, leave. I don't like to get up and sit down and do things. I need to go. Because if I sit down, I'm not getting up. So I would like meal prep, like, like those like English muffin things that you get at McDonald's that are disgusting, but like when you make them at home, they're good. So I would just like make a whole carton of egg whites, scramble them up, lay out my muffins, toast them, make little sandwiches. At the time, I'm pescatarian now, but at the time we ate meat. So like I would get turkey bacon and put it in the oven, cut it up, make the sandwiches, roll them up. I would make breakfast burritos, roll them up for like a month. And then you just take them out one at a time. I always had my meal prep always consisted of like, yes, it's the best way to do them. You put them in, you roll them up in paper towel individually and then put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. And then the night before, take one out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, 1 minute in the microwave, grab and go. Smart. So yeah, I've always did that. We always bought like chicken and a fish. I would eat steak like sparingly. We would make a bunch of rice or sweet potatoes. That's just how I cooked. I can't even tell you where it came from. It just seemed like the smart way to do things. I don't even know if I called it meal prep. Like, I don't know if we called it meal prep.
It was your time to cook. So
yeah, it was just my time to cook. Sundays and Wednesdays, like time to cook. So yeah, when I got a meal plan, it was not, I didn't feel overwhelmed. At all. I think it's the structure of it though. The structure of meal prepping of any sort, whether you're following a plan or you're just preparing your meals, it's to be able to have the things out. My time is precious to me. I love to be able to take the time when I can. So I don't like wasting time doing things that I don't need to waste time to do. So if I could set myself up to wake up, get enough sleep, and then wake up and get things started. Once my feet hit the floor, if I can go boom, 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 and out the door, like that's the best time ever. Instead of waking up like 3 hours before I need to wake up to go get my whole life together. That's not me.
You just like to take action and always be moving forward.
Yes.
Well, I think that it's clear you're very driven. You've accomplished so much and you're inspiring other people to do the same. And just you coming on here has been so special for me. And I would love if you could leave us with your best advice. So your best advice for people who've never competed before but want to, and then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
Okay, best advice for people that have never competed that want to compete. I would say my best advice in general is the same thing that I continue to say. Mindset matters. Mindset is everything. My favorite quote, I think I made it up, but I've started saying it, is change the mind, the body will follow. The people just, wow, we underestimate the power of the mind. We do. I think for new competitors, my best advice would be treat competing with the same energy that you treat anything else that you would like to do. If you are applying for a new job, I'm going to assume that you wouldn't apply for the job without researching the company. If you're getting ready to go to school, I would assume the enthusiasm you have for going to get that degree, you're going to research the schools and make sure they're well qualified to be able to get you the degree you need. You won't waste that time, money, or energy. So I say treat bodybuilding the same way you would treat that. I think that people would be a lot more successful if they gave that same attention to detail and energy in picking a coach, understanding the sport, asking questions as the same that I would assume if you worked for a company and your boss told you to do some off the wall stuff, you wouldn't just do it. The beauty of competing is that you don't have to do it. So you should feel less fearful of asking questions. Sometimes with a job, some people feel like, oh my God, I need this money. You don't have to compete. You don't need to compete. So you actually have a lot more responsibility to yourself to take your time and treat it like you would anything else.
Great advice. Love that.
For someone on their road to pro, understand why you want to be a pro. Really, I mean, understand why you want to be a pro, know what success means to you, and understand what does being a pro mean. If you can understand all three of those things, you will probably have a lot less stress on your journey, and you won't settle for anything. Because if your only goal and desire is I want to be a pro by any means necessary, and you don't even know what success means to you, that means you will do any and everything to do it, no matter what the damage is.
Yes. Thank you for saying this. Like, that needed to be said. And I think there's probably people listening who are like, I'm doing that and I don't want to take responsibility for doing that, because like that honestly, I believe is what kills people's longevity in this sport as well.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to climb up on a big soapbox here and like say it much more, but like doing so much to get a result, and you're taking a process that's not sustainable long-term, or you don't even feel aligned to as an athlete, and it's simply just so you can have a title, it's going to destroy your career because you don't even have one from the get-go. It's like, what are you committing to?
And it really is the wrong focus. Focusing on being a pro versus focusing on doing the things and understanding the things to get your body, your mind, your soul to a level that you want it to be at. And then you getting on stage will result. Those things, worried about those things, yes. The results of that will be, if you're competing in a sport that has a pro level, would be turning pro. And maybe that may not be the result, but you'll have so many more things to take away from that. You might actually find out the things that you're doing to get to that level, the level is not really what you wanted. It was all the things that you were doing, and you can take that knowledge and do other things. There's nothing wrong with, like, I want to go to the Olympia. I'm going to the Olympia. I am going to the Olympia. However, it's not by any means necessary. The reason why I want to go to the Olympia is more than just for me. Mm-hmm. So it's not I want to go to the Olympia so I can prove to everyone I went to the Olympia. Okay, so then I get there, then what? I want to go, yes, to go and to be on that stage, but I want to go because I want to set the example. I want people to be able to look at me by me being, starting a little bit older as a competitor. So I had that audience looking at me like, man, she's in the military. She has a glute business, a posing business, and she deployed and she made it to Olympia. And she's only been competing. Like, I hit my 4-year mark, April or May, when I did my show, May this year, my 4-year mark of competing. And I still say minus a year because the year that I was on deployment. Or you have the 20, 21-year-olds, 25-year-olds like, wow, I can calm down. Because if this doesn't work out right now, because I have other things to focus on, it's still never going to be too late. Because look at that girl. She's doing it. She just started competing and, she's doing it right now. So that's one of the reasons why I want to do this and continue to do this. The clients that I have clients that are doctors, mothers and things like that, me being able to let them know that, yes, it may suck, but you can do this. Just like you became a doctor, you became a mom. Those things are hard. Other people look at those things like, those things are crazy. I could never do that. So you can do this too. So it's that being able to influence and inspire and through the example that I'm doing. Like, you know, we can all talk and say all the things that you should be doing, but living the life, that I think is going to set more of a tone to help other people than just the things that I say. So, you know, I tell people all the time, like, I have like 2 followers, nobody pays attention to me. But the people that I help, I feel like I genuinely help them. Like I am actually, they're listening, they're watching. So no matter what that thing says on Instagram, this is who I am and this is my life. I'm going to keep living a life. I'm not doing it for a number of followers. I'm doing it because I want to continue to inspire generations now, generations before, generations, you know, to continue. So that's pretty much it.
I love it. Yeah, that resonates really a lot with me too. I just, passion goes so much further. Passion for like actually doing what you're doing and wanting to serve and help goes so much further than just like passion for a name, a title, a number of followers. Like you said, like that stuff can go away, like that can fade. But what sticks is like how you got there, the things that you did, the things that you committed to improve to yourself. So I just love your advice that you gave and everything you shared throughout the episode. And I want people to be able to connect with you and even reach out about working with you. So maybe you can share your Instagram, your website, or anything else.
Yes. My personal Instagram is Mini, MINI _beast, BEAST _Toni, TONI 17. And my business Instagram for posing is details, DETAILS _matters. Posing. I'm like, that's the website. Okay, so yeah, details with an S _matter posing. And then my website for posing as well as booking a group consultation is details with an S, details matter posing .com. Jeez. So yeah, detailsmatterposing.com.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes too. So you guys listening, you'll be able to go to celestial.fit/podcast and you'll see all the links to Instagram pages and to her website. So that way you can explore it. What you'll also see are all the episode timestamps and notes, the summary of topics that were covered. So if you want to listen to this episode again, or you want to recommend it to someone, you'll be able to tell them, you know, which part to go to or what topics were discussed so that they can tune in with you. So I appreciate all of you guys listening. And Toni, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And to all of you out there, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.